The Stormers need to play more like the Sharks. The Sharks need to play more like the Bulls, and the Bulls need to play more like the Stormers. A little bit, not too much.
This cross kick it's a hit and hope.
So there was about a year ago, there was some really nice, beautiful Bulls tap and goes that were designed set plays. I thought they'd almost fit their, I mean, who's stopping Hanekom Elderflow on a give and go that close? Not many, not even at test level.
There's a fine balance there. I'd like to see the Stormers continue on this path, but I want them to make better decisions with those offloads. I can tell you for a 10, if a team doesn't have an identity, you'll battle to put your mark on any game.
The Sharks are a little bit, they have something wrong in the setup of their scrum, because you cannot take the people they have, the personnel they have, who are dominant in the World Cup against the best scrums in the world, and then have them struggle at club level.
It's the Lekker Rugby Pod.
You and I ruffled a few feathers in December. We're not going to expand on that. But you've since then done a series of videos on how to fix three of the big teams, the Bulls, the Stormers, and the Sharks. Now, I wanted to ask Andre's thoughts on that, because you just mentioned, what you're looking at, and you analyze all these malls going back several games, so you have, can pick up trends and statistics. Starting with the Bulls, just summarize quickly what your thoughts are to fix the Bulls. And I want to ask Andre on each one of these teams what his thoughts are in terms of your plans, your fixes. So, well, it could work or not work for that matter. Just tell us the Bulls' plans, starting with that, because that obviously is closest to my heart.
Yeah, you're going to make me shy now, because I have to remember what I put down. But if you almost imagine a southwesterly wind blowing up the escarpment from Cape Town to Durban, and then across to Pretoria, where you love, and then it comes down again from the north. It'll be like the Stormers need to play more like the Sharks need to play more like the Bulls, and the Bulls need to play more like the Stormers. A little bit, not too much. My problem with the Bulls is that they're too law-abiding when they get advantage in the red zone, and so they don't put the referee into a must-choose situation, and too quickly in the advantage, they're kicking miracle balls, which sometimes come off, and it's like, that's also the danger of stats when you're a player, is you might only remember the things that worked and you forget the things that didn't. And giving up the advantage of, if you're 10 meters out and you've got a penalty advantage, just having to return to the same spot to take your penalty advantage kick out and then launch again, infusing all those error rates of, the right call, right lift, right catch, and then, you get the line out again, having squandered your advantage, and then you have to reload. Now you've got the ball at the 15 or 20, and you're having to reload again. I'd prefer that the Bulls be almost infringing. So I had these series of almosts, like go in even harder, like clean those rucks, because there's a tendency by refs, once you're in the red zone, to kind of give you a break and reward you. And they're looking almost more on the defensive side of that ruck sometimes. And so, but milk it longer. I thought there was several times in the two matches that I went, play by play, inside the red zone, that the Bulls relaxed the pressure. And rugby's always been about imposing pressure and keeping it on you. And so why would you relieve it? I think also the hard lines were not being run. It's almost like the same lines. The Bulls were playing harder to get into the 22, more incisively to get in the 22 than they were inside the red zone. Everything seemed to slow down, and they were looking too much at coaching box. And then the breaks that really mattered, they came from outside the 22. Cam Hanekom picking up from the base of a scrum 35 meter out, just beating everyone, splitting the 9 and the 10. That's not, I don't give credit to the coaches for that. That's just a superlative athlete. So, I think the good news for the Bulls is these are all fixable things. Getting into the 22 as much as they do is wonderful. Like, I don't know what it was in those two games, 18 and 12 at times, and not even just 22. And they were down in the 5 and the 10. But they rode the maul too long a couple of times. They made it easy to predict what they were going to do, except for a Villy. It's like Bulls were doing the same, and then a Villy. And then that's too easy to defend, because what if Villy's off a little bit, or if he gets slow ball and he gets rocked or charged down, then the Sharks were off to the races. So that was my main crises. And now you can rip me, Andre.
Nah, I tend to agree with most of what you said there, Harry, but this cross kick, just to get back to that point first, it's a hit and hope. And what's happening now is it's kind of looking for a try assist on your side, it's not on. It's a defense coach's dream, because you've done, especially if you go off at first phase, only one pass. Now, I believe when you want to go into the cross kick, you need a minimum of two passes. That second pass is what starts narrowing up that defense line. They have to look at that three-man play that most of them do at the moment, going out the back. And once you get that second pass, then it opens up. But going one pass just to Willie, kicking that's a defense coach's dream to defend, because one more pass, and it kind of actually becomes impossible. If you have a look at the teams that do it really well, they get that second pass in, and there's just no way. If the kick's on the money, you're scoring every time. You go one pass, and your fullback's covering that probably 9 times out of 10. And then you still need to have a good kick. So that's the first one. I think that's a good point. What I'm just skeptical of is that scallum call, and I understand what you're trying to say there. With there's just so many cameras and people that are involved with. Okay, right, let's go back. They find stuff even without you doing anything, anyways. And you just need one 4 lock or 6 flank going. All right, well, the coach told me, yeah, I can kind of go a bit more. And the only way you lose that advantage is by foul play. And he goes and he cleans someone on the head because the coach said go harder, or where I think you can still be looking for small advantages, but doing it within the borders of the rules. For instance, cleaning, but cleaning deep. You don't have to stop on the ruck. Cleaning deep, stopping their fold, next ball quick. You're running into small spaces, but it's going to be small spaces anyway. So anything bigger than they're giving you at the moment is going to be a bonus. Cleaning deep, really focusing on your ball carrier's position, the connection of your ruckers, winning that ruck in the air. Again, I believe if you keep hammering those processes, it'll come, and you'll make them tackle. You've also spoken about the fatigue setting in and them making bad mistakes. So it's just a case of you need that one rebel that goes and cleans someone on the head. You lose the advantage. Penalty gets turned around, and they get a release out of that. The other thing is, Harry, like you said, a lot of 22 entries it's a lot of knocks on doors. So, it's a lot more probability and chances for someone to open up. I think teams have got to work out ways. It should be like a mini score for you if you can get a 50-22. Start creating 50-22 plays. And there's so many out there. And I think at the moment, they've given us the 50-22 rule. The novelty's worn off. Nobody's really looking at the 50-22s that we see. It's not planned stuff that I can tell. It's not something where they play 2 phases, they fake one side, the 9 kicks on this side, they've lost their 2-point defense at the back, and the ball rolls out, and now you've got a 22 entry. So you're creating 22 entries, and once your 22 entries goes up, obviously your percentage will come down, but you've got more chances.
There was a beautiful play by the Wallabies on the end of your tour where they set up Joe Schmidt, perfect starter play, made sure it was outside the 50, so it was on. And the kicker sets up in exactly the pocket he wants, been practicing it all pregame, and nails it. Like, you even know off his foot it's going to be a 50-22. There's no cover, there's no possibility of cover. No fullback would have got to it because it was a nice low, like a rifle shot. And that's devastating. I think the Bulls needed to be doing more 50-22s. As you'll see later, I think Sharks cut down a little bit on their tries, but on their attempts. But I thought that the 2 entries I saw from the Bulls against the Sharks that were brilliant was they sped everything up, and they were crisscross lines. So inside the 10-meter channel in the middle of the field, so not even departing from the shadow of the posts, they were diagonal, and David Creel scores, or it might have been someone else, but Forster. But it was difficult to stop because each movement was quicker. It was beyond quick ruck ball. There wasn't even a ruck. It was pre-ruck. And I thought that was Bull's style to me. I mean, that. Like my comparison was in tennis where you're up and your opponent's rattled. Then serve quickly. Don't bounce the ball 17 times. Go, 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 go. And so everyone's on the back foot. They're playing uphill.
And don't, slog warily to the line out. Run there. Get it done.
It does me in, and then you have a sloppy catch throw. And so then all you're getting is the ball behind where you had it to begin with. So there was about a year ago, there was some really nice, like beautiful Bulls tap and goes that were designed set plays. I thought that almost fit there. I mean, who's stopping Hanekom Elderglo on a give and go that close? Not many, not even at test level. So, I bring back some of that because if you start applying the risk odds of the throw, the catch, the lift, the clean, the early engage, the throw to 9, and then all you're getting is charge down Willie in the midfield, doesn't give you anything. So basically my whole thing is, Andre, is unpredictability for the Bulls up that game, because I think they've got such amazing one-on-one players.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Harry. And I think if you go and look at creating more opportunities in those wider channels, you've got most teams are standing in a contesting position to pretend that they might be going up. Mm-hmm. And once they do that, when teams are going up or not going up. But now they're in a position. If they want to go up, they can go up. So it brings in that variable as well. And then, off those set play, off those tap plays, if it doesn't come off, the best way to get a team to narrow up the defense is to go into that knockout attack, that pick and go attack. And that opens up that crossfield kick from there.
Yep.
It gets them into a position where they can't cover everything. They have to look at these big guys picking and going. And if you go like Hamish Watson from Edinburgh, they scored a couple of tries against the Lions, where the Lions they didn't have a bad setting for the knockout attack, but what they did well was they faked the pick and then made that pass, which meant that the first two defenders gave one step in, and they were late on that catch up to add weight to that pot of 3 that latched on there. And that's difficult to defend. And once they get a bit of go forward there, it almost always brings in that outside defenders to come and add weight and add bodies. And that's when the outside starts opening up.
Mm-hmm. Three scenarios off of all those things where you have a set play and you have Akker on the ball running at subterranean level. Who's going to stop that? He's going to get from a 5 meter to the 1 meter every time. And then you've literally built a 1 meter ruck from the try line, which is what you wanted all along. It's better than everything else. But then you have someone back in the pocket for the drop. You have someone back in the pocket for the cross. You have your wings like on the touchline, so as far as possible. So you have a full spread. What are you defending? It's hard to pick. Sorry, I'm getting worked up about the Bulls.
I told you, I'm going to brainwash you. I'm getting there. It's 54% you trust them now. We mistrust them in the beginning. It was 55% last week. So talk about the Stormers quickly. You said lots of calls about Dobbo maybe not being up to it. We're not talking about the coaches. We're simply talking about the way that they're playing. Just talk to us about your Stormers plan, and again, we'll hear Andre's critique of it.
I'm not very objective about the Stormers. So on the one hand, I'm like, I want to cry about the injuries and say, but if we just had the guys on the field, you'd see. On the other hand, I get so upset because we play like we just on a serious babalas. We like walk onto the field, with the pipe in our pockets. It just feels like we're drunk most of the time. So there's an embarrassment of riches on the Stormers on attack side. We got to give quicker. So sometimes we're getting like going into contact when no contact was really necessary. And Galant, I'm looking at you, but also Lubbock, and to some extent, our midfield is hunting people to tackle me. It's like, where are you? Where are you? And then we try to offload in contact. I think sometimes there were spaces, and if you just go quickly, really bad penalties. So it's the opposite of the Bulls, where I want them to almost, go for their first serve and second serve more so they can have more double faults, but it's going to be okay. I think with the Stormers, it's like going for everything. So, even referees come in thinking that. I mean, they're human, they have tendencies as well, and they realize, okay, this is going to happen. So looking at you, Ruben, on that one, Ruben sometimes cleans like he's landing the play instead of taking it off. But all that being said, you get the right personnel back. No one's pushing that scrum back. Line is pretty clean. There are playmakers. I don't know. Here's one thing, and it's sort of related to the idea that when Dion Ferry came back, the referee chat got a lot better. Mostly because Dion's the same age as the refs, but they're just talking like peers. But there was a feeling of leadership, and these are still young men, and they are emotional, and sometimes it can just be scrambly. Marnie's is a very quiet spoken fly off. There's not a yappy nine. Herschel's quiet as well. A lot of the guys don't talk very much. So, it's interesting to see what would happen if Sasha was in the driver's seat and they just said, run it for a while. And then we're going to have Marnie as my 23 and come on and fill in anywhere he wants and chase games. But for now, it feels like there's a lot of, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You're here, you're there. There's no one leading it. And so that plays into ref chat as well. So for me, the Stormers fix is more, I don't know, spiritual, emotional than it is getting good ball. They got great ball. That scrum is generating the most penalties in the ERC as usual. And France just came back. So imagine that, it's going to be even better. But I think it's a lot more about accountability. And my feeling is that, Dabo gets upset, I'm sure, but he doesn't really, like, people aren't scared enough about him. And to me, I see him as the director of rugby, planning academies and goodwill. I don't know if you come back to Oranges and you're really frightened of him. And he's such a nice guy.
The Stormers' game model seems to be continuity.
Yeah.
They've got the set piece sorted. They're doing well in that area, and you can see that there's a game model where they want to avoid rucks and really focus on the offloads. Now, I'm a big fan of that. The problem is that you get two that don't work, and a lot of coaches will go, all right, stop the 50-50s, we're done with offloading. So what I'm trying to say is you're either an offloading team or you're not. There's no gray area, yeah. And the Stormers are definitely an offloading team, and it feels like Dobbo is giving them license, which I like, because we don't want everybody playing like the Sharks and the Bulls. Let's have one team that sets the stage alight. And what I'd rather go and do is let's perfect the offload, starting with our process. You got to beat the man first. There's no use in running into a double shoulder and there's no gain line. There's no beating the man, and you're trying to offload from there. Second, the decision. Is this an offload? Am I getting a visual for the supporter? Or am I just chucking the ball away, hoping that there's someone? And then the skill of the offload as well. If you want to get into an offload mode, you must be able to transfer the ball from your chest. You must be able to push it out if it's this side, or to get your hand under and get rid of it on that side. So the skill of the offload is important. And then, of course, you've got support runners preserving their lines, staying an option, but also not preserving the line too long so that they cannot ruck and the breakdown becomes a problem, because that's an issue as well. Once you get into an offloading mindset, guys preserve their support lines. I thought you were going to play the offload, and they got no one cleaning the ruck. So there's a fine balance there. I'd like to see the Stormers continue on this path, but I want them to make better decisions with those offloads. There are a couple where guys are never in a position to make that, and that's probably should go on the clipboard. This is not the time to offload. But the way that they play, it's an exciting brand. I think something's happening there, and this is part of their DNA. And there's a lot of players that I think can do this. So I'm really hoping that they can get into that. And then just on their exits, you mentioned they're not exiting well, and it's well known if you can exit well, you can stop mauls, and you don't concede penalties at scrums, the probability of you winning the game, not being competitive, winning the game is really good. Now they've got, and Harry, I don't know if your stats is the same as these. This is your Opta stats, but they've got 22% of lineouts won on opposition ball.
Mm-mm.
They've got one of the best lineout contesting uh,
Yep.
setups in the competition. Why wouldn't you kick the ball out? Why wouldn't you go to a static set piece and put them under pressure and defend from there? So I agree with you. They need to get the ball off the park and put pressure on their set piece.
I think you can still have structure within a super attacking game. For example, offloads. I'm going to actually name the 8 players that can offload for me, and I'm going to actually tell the 7 players I don't want you to offload. I think that's structure within. That means my 7 guys who are not allowed to offload, they know they're supporting or they know they're cleaning. And I think between those two, there needs to be really clear clarity. The Stormers right now, we're running for the offload support, but then we're not arriving at the ruck. And that's where the penalties on attack will kill you. Like the cessation of attack when you had good ball 30 meters out, you're storming through, you have all these offloads ready to go, but then no one cleans. It's the mismatch there. So I think knowing who I am and literally having red and the blue, I'm red, I'm blue, I'm red, I'm blue. So I know whether I'm doing the red or I'm doing the blue. The red's the offload support, the blue is the clean. Victor Matfield was famous for saying a number. I want these many lineouts. And so like you can fabricate that. There's a way, no one can stop you from kicking the ball into the stands. Even if the kick is not huge, if you say, I want to have that many lineouts, it's a corollary to, I'm going to have scrums in the World Cup, I will make one. It's harder to make a scrum. It's easier to make a lineout. So I agree that those are intentionality. That's coaching, telling the players, here we're going to put the other team in our, come fight me in the ocean or come fight me on the mountain. I'll pick the place of battle. And if I want that to be lineouts, then let's create lineouts. So I think there's just a little bit of maybe it's just the vivid instructions of a coach where they burn into your brain. For Galant, I like what he does, but he's got to give quicker sometimes. He'll actually be out in the trams and he'll have 2 guys with him, and he just always tries for that one more miracle thing. And sometimes the best play in rugby is just to get the ball through your hands as quickly as possible. On the offloads, the battle is not the shoulder battle like the ruck, it's the elbow battle. And so you've got to have, MVA, you love Archie, and you see, his offloads, he always has his elbow above the other guy's shoulder because that's just physics. But, if you're not going to be that, if you're going to be, Ox trying to do an offload, then you have to find a way to get that elbow above his shoulder.
Just, Harry, just on Galant, it gets worse if he starts the game with a mistake or 2, because then it feels like he needs to do something really special to get back to level terms and then, start the game from there. If Galant starts really well, he tends to have a good game, and he's a confidence player, and he'll try things. But I agree with you. There's certain times where just make the play, get the ball into the next play to play again. You touch the ball the 3rd time, you probably score the try yourself. So he's got a lot of work to do with regards to that.
And the counterintuitive stat, MB, is that it's a keep ball alive off attack, and it's good to watch. But we're getting the ball to the 12 and 13. We're getting the second receiver the ball the least in the entire ERC. That means a lot of those offloads that are happening are going from forward to forward or from back to forward. And there's a reason why midfielders are midfielders. A lot of them are playmakers. You want to get the ball in the hands of that guy as soon as possible. And we'll jump to the Sharks next, I know, but Andre is the biggest carrier. So you want to make sure that in your stats as a whole, stats is, what's my trend? Who are my heavy carriers? Is it coming from the fullback? Is it coming from, 12? I want my 12 to be a carrier.
Talking about 12, you mentioned, going up against a guy like André Pretorius and this big heavy guy. We sort of had a pedestrian 12 there for the Stormers. Sorry, John Luke, I don't want to offend you or anything. Why did they put Sasha there at 12, for example? Injury-prone player. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit off the subject here, but valuable player, sort of out of position. I know he can play 12, but that's not really the best place to put him, wasn't it? Wasn't the best place.
Yeah, I always hesitate to talk about injury prone until we have much larger numbers because like people say that about Andre Pollard, and then also you can sometimes see that he's got huge minutes like this season and last year. So same thing was true for Jesse Creel at times, and now he's like Mr. Iron Man. So it's very luck oriented. I mean, it's just things that happen in rugby that are weird. I think Sacha's a tough boy, and he actually goes into contact. He doesn't. He's not afraid of contact. So that's my first lesson: is you get hurt more when you try to avoid contact than when if you initiate it. So I think long term that's fine. Um, just don't know, like if you're gonna crash ball 12 channel and it's Andre versus Sasha, there's only one outcome. I think Sasha's bigger gifts and talent base for South Africa in general, not just the Stormers, is to control a game, take it over. He's such a footballer. He does things that no one else can do that are bigger than just running into someone. He can do the outside banana kick, two rolls, call it, tell you where he's going to put it and do it. So I disagree with the handling of him. Also, I thought he came back too early from an actual injury before. And I think he tries to soldier on, and Arassi's, giving him some grief on that. So I don't know. He's young. So I think we shouldn't look at a player and say, where do you want to play? I think a coach has to take these decisions and tough decisions. Someone's got to be unhappy. It's okay for the greater good, the longer good. So for me, I would have Sasha at 10 and a sort of a Pollard type 10, and that he doesn't mind running into contact. He's good in contact, but I don't want him running 12 times into Bundy Aki.
I wanted to ask you, Andre, we talked about the 10, the importance of 10, and we didn't mention with the Bulls, but the Stormers have an abundance of 10s, basically Mani or Sasha, even Willemse, once he's back. The Sharks have Masuku now, they've got Jordan Hendricks, a good quality star number 10s, but the Bulls, there's a problem with 10, Andre. Talk to me about that quickly before we go into the Sharks. Sorry, I just wanted to ask you about that.
From that Saracens game, obviously we had a bit of a discussion about Jan Goosen and the way he played, and he'd probably be the first one to say that wasn't his best game, but he is getting better. The lack of control at the moment in the Bulls side is a worry, especially with the type of ball that they're creating. And there's a couple of instances where, especially in the 22 area, where they get some really good ball, and Goosen actually looks flustered in some stages, where he's, where I think if you get an opportunity there's a couple of things that you think about, but there's one or two things that you do. You either take on the line or you put the ball into space, and he did neither of them, and then just went into contact, not very assertive, nearly lost the ball. So I think that just shows where his mindset is at the moment. Personally, I'd like to see Boeta Chamberlain get a bit of a run, just because he looks like a fighter. It looks like he can. If they play him at hooker, he'll probably learn how to scrum in a week and hopefully not break his neck. But he's that type of player for me, and I think that's what you might make bad decisions, but he's also going to make some good ones. But he's going to he'll give you the mindset and the control that you need at the moment.
I remember I talked to a guy who scouted for Leinster in the internals, and his job was just to take an opposition player apart. And Goosen was playing in France at the time. It was Champions Cup stuff, and they rated him so highly. I mean, Goosen has all the physical attributes that you'd want, and they compared him to Aaron Cruden for the Kiwis, for All Blacks, and said, same kind of player. Got every trick in the book, not overpowering physically, but such a good player. I think he's fallen into this habit of overthinking, and it's paralyzing him. It's almost like fox and hedgehog thing. You're fox for most of the field, then you get into the 22, you need to become a hedgehog. You just got to have 1-2 binary. Boom, boom, that's it. Because everything shortens and your time on the ball is shorter. And so Goosen, I think, is his own worst enemy at this point. I would actually give him a little bit of a breather, just because I actually think he's a really good player. He'll come back even better, but he needs to restore his confidence.
Harry, just on that, what do you think is the Bulls' identity at the moment? If you think about Bulls rugby now, what is the identity that you would associate with them?
Mm. Yeah, so I always think that identity needs to attack to your long-term DNA, which was always, big pack, bulls, player, scrum, Muriu. I think there is, if you look at the stats, they do a lot of offloads actually. And they sometimes are hunting space. I think I would soften up. I think they are not softening up their opposition sufficiently, turning them into margarine first. I think they're trying to, cut the bread all over the place. The other thing is, I'm not sure that they commit to a kick strategy. Sometimes I feel like they play at it and then they go away from it. And it's a bit like your offloading thing. It's like if you're going to go all the way on kick chase and regain, which is, the best ball of all, spilled ball, to the races, then do that. But you're going to have to build some stats there. And so I think my answer to your question is it's a bit bipolar right now. It's a little bit, one or the other, not any one thing.
Now, I can tell you for a 10, if a team doesn't have an identity, you're battle to put
Yeah.
your mark on any game. And the problem at the moment is Goosen has always been seen as a bit of a hybrid. He can kick and run, but he's been seen more as a kicking fly. He'll put you in the corners. He'll kick 50, 60-meter penalties. And that's not how the Bulls trying to play at the moment. They're trying to play an attacking style of rugby, and I don't think he's that 10.
Mm.
Right. That's a bit of a downer for the Bulls. Let's talk about the Sharks. Larry, tell me about your Sharks theory. You mentioned specifically about they should do less or fewer of the 50-22 attempts or kicks, where the Bulls and the guys should do more of them. Talk to me about the Sharks fix that you had in mind.
I actually think, I'm sorry for the pun, but I'm kind of bullish on the Sharks in the sense that, when everyone is back in, they've got a proper pack. And you saw the difference when they didn't have Bongi and Eben in the scrum. So there's a fixable issue. And they have the ultimate benchmark coming to town to lose, which is a actual test team. It literally has some of the best spine of France, and then it adds Blair Kinghorn, Jack Willis, Lavani Botti. I mean, it adds a silliness. It's the whole 23-man team. So the Sharks will get a proper test. But I think the Sharks are a little bit need to recalibrate their scrum. Actually, speaking of the scrum, they have something wrong in the setup of their scrum, because you cannot take the people they have, the personnel they have, were dominant in the World Cup against the best scrums in the world, and then have them struggle at club level. So I actually look at the second row there, because a lot of times the front row is going to be the front row, and there's not much. You're not going to teach Ox and Koch how to recalibrate their bind with Bongi. So there's something going on behind that that's not right. I was interested when I watched in Durban pre-game of Ireland box, and I watched 30-minute scrum tutorial by Don Human, and how fixated he was on the locks, how he almost spent more time with the locks, and exactly how that works. So I think that's a fixable issue, by the way. So that's good for the Sharks. I like fixable issues if you're looking at the stocks of a team. On the 50-22s, I just think they almost, Fassi and the boys are kind of in love with that, and they go sometimes too much. And I do like Hendrikse, Fassi in terms of game management. And I would just remind everyone they're young. So everything I'm saying about this is still in formation. And so sometimes it's not baked in. Like Goosen's problems are baked in by now. Montpellier, back to South Africa, a lot of baggage, a lot of scars. But Jaden Jordan, I feel like they can really do whatever they want. So what I'm hoping for the Sharks is to have someone calm, patient, understand how Gen Z works in their brains, create vivid pictures, create sort of a scenario painting. We talked about this, MVL, of when this is going on. I'm not worried about the Sharks. I actually think they're kind of a danger, because not all three teams are going to make it to the top. So, one of these teams is going to cannibalize mine. And I worry a little about the Sharks. Even though they lost, I felt like so that the Sharks have a way of staying in the fight. I don't think Plumtrees is a particularly imaginative coach or innovative, but he can build a proper hard team. So I think the Sharks just have to do a little more on that. Sharks do something as well with the same thing the Stormers do, is they go for the rip and the strip too much in the tackle. I don't know, Andre might have some thoughts about this. I mean, I know a turnover is big, but you've got to first get the tackle before you start ripping and stripping. Otherwise, you're going to create line breaks from just innocuous runs.
For sure. There's we've got two players that we actually had a session today where first video showed them that they're not finishing their tackles, and in this case it had a lot to do with the conditioning. It was when they started getting tired, they felt like, you know, if I get the rip, then I don't have to complete this tackle, and we get the ball back, I don't have to defend after that. So that is a big problem. And the problem, furthermore, is that you're giving the arrivals an opportunity to add weight, add numbers, and that where the ruck could have been, the location severely changes to the advantage of the opponents, or to the guys with the ball. So the attacking side would have just had a ruck, normal tackle, no contest in there, no nothing needed, quick ball, but you still set a ruck, you can set your D. The problem with the other issue, or the other scenario, is that ruck is now gone 5 meters backwards. Your fold is slow, you're not setting, and you're in deeper trouble. So that's a big concern. And I think for Joey Monjalo, I know he's a leg cut, he's a leg chop proponent of the defense side, and he definitely won't be promoting that. So I think that's guys going off on their own and trying to solve those types of problems.
I mean, they tackle very low in general, though. They go very low, I think.
Yeah, Joey's always been a leg chop guy with a top coming in and finishing. So I reckon that'll be a problem, because the initial guy is then not doing his job. He's not executing what's been requested, or what's been given to them, you know. The other thing is, I think with the Sharks having those good ball carriers, you said you wanted them to carry for longer. It's important that they carry long enough, but not too long, so that they can still present on their own terms. And what I mean by that is, you know, not getting turned and landing on your back. A couple of the Bulls carries last couple of weeks, we've been focusing on the Bulls games. Landing on your back, guys having a clear visual onto the ball, making, you know, either stealing it or slowing it down. So just making good decisions. You know, if you're winning the fight, keep going, get the bodies behind, take the yards that you've been given, and then when you feel that resistance, there's nothing more to gain. Ensure that you present on your own terms, that you can get the phase continuously on the way that you want it to go, because landing on your back obviously is going to get that slow ball going, which you don't want. But they should go, like you said, more like the Stormers, but they should go and work on the offloading skills more. You know, it's the way that they carry and the way that they go into contact. They're not giving themselves real advantage or chances to get rid of the ball. And you know, it's kind of a waste having all this gain line success, and but you're setting up more rucks than most teams, where you could be avoiding rucks and getting unstructured defense most of the time.
Yeah, like Fassi is one of those, you know, world, like, I don't know, the speed level, the evasiveness. So, and Andre at Harlequins was so good at holding the ball up, holding his two defenders up, and then offloading. So you would think there could be design plays around that, even if it's 2 or 3 times a game. If you get Fassi into space, he can run away from people. Like, you know, he's just one of those guys. He's got that superiority. On defensive, I watched Nienaber's defense over the years go back from the offsides line and actually take 2 steps back, so they could always start on the run into the rush defense. So they were not blowing up for offsides, because they weren't, but also they had a running start. And when the ruck itself keeps moving back, it defeats that, because now you're coming backward before you go forward. It looks like to me Sharks do a bit of that. They line up too much right on the line, and then have to take a backward step, get pinged for it sometimes. Ethan Hooker at this point, I think. Would you think they should just take 2 or 3 steps back and then be able to sprint into, you know, phase defense?
Yes, the problem is defense coaches don't want to give anything away.
No,
And
no, yeah.
And on the attacking side, it's so much more difficult to be tackling guys that are into that run catch instead of catch run. And that's when defenses are dominating attack, when guys are getting the ball static and trying to get to the gain line. Defense has already come up. You're not gonna reach that. And then on the offloading, I think it's important for them to understand where the space is in certain types of contact situations. So if it's an edge ruck, you're coming around the corner, it's a drift defense in front of you. If you're stepping to the inside and you've got your fend out to the inside, there's space everywhere on your outside, because he's probably hanging onto your waist. He's not going to be able to prevent that offload. You're controlling the defender on the inside, and there's a guy coming off your shoulder on the outside. And if you're controlling this guy on the inside with your fend hand, that opens up the offload on that side. So even if you just, like you said, a script play where coming off that, we'll be going at the 45, stepping on the inside, and we've got people running off that play, but they're probably not going to be involved in the ruck if he doesn't get the offload away.
All right, so we've run out of time, effectively. Andre needs to go to bed. He's got to go to training almost. The sun is almost coming up in Japan, I would think. So thanks for that. I really enjoyed that. I think that was exceptional. Andre, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we can do this again.
Thanks, Envia. Thanks, Harry. Look forward to the next one, and I look forward to your content as well.
Cheers, Andre. Yeah, I love learning from you, and MV, you got something going on here. Let's keep this going.
Definitely. We must just get a time zone sorted out. Andre, get a transfer or something. Well, Harry said he was going to climb Mount Fuji soon, so you guys can do it together in Japan one day.
We'll do a Mount Fuji content one.
Yeah, there we go.
That's it, and a sumo tournament.
It's the Lekker Rugby Pod.